Thank you all for tuning in today, as we are pleased to bring you an exclusive interview. Throughout the course of exploration of historical sites around Canada, historians from the Canadian Historical Association in Ottawa recently uncovered files of old recorded interviews with influential Canadian figures. These files were carefully examined and recovered in order to tell Canada's story from the creators of it themselves. In today's episode, listeners get a chance to hear from the founding father of Manitoba himself, Louis Riel. This interview will give you, the listener, an inside look at Riel's views on his actions, as well as the Canadian government. Stay tuned to hear his whole story and for a chance to listen to his great feats as a Canadian hero. Louis Riel was born on October 22, 1844, into a farmstead on the Red and Seine River in the Red River settlement. Growing up, he was always showing a devout attachment to the Catholic Church as well as the bringing of justice to the Métis people. Today we get a chance to sit down with the influential politician to speak of his achievements. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us today, Mr. Riel.
It is my honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Without further ado, I think many of our listeners are curious to hear what you have to say about all that has happened involving you within the past events in Manitoba. Do you mind if we start?
No, go right ahead. I am eager to speak.
Very well then. First off, what are your views on the opinions that have been formulated around you being a traitor to Canada?
Now you see, this is where the great misconception falls. I am simply a patriot who has fought and will continue fighting for my people's beliefs. There is nothing that I can do to change the opinions of the individuals who fail to recognize this. My downfall simply lies in the prevailing prejudices which are taking place. But I know where I stand and I will continue to hold my ground.
Thank you for voicing your views, Riel. I think all of us are also anxious to know why you chose to flee to the U.S. upon Wolsey's arrival with his troops in the Red River settlement.
I was scared for my life. When Wolsey came to the settlement, I felt threatened. So to save myself, I felt that I needed to escape. So I fled.
Don't you think that is a little bit selfish of you, perhaps even cowardly? Instead of standing with your Métis people, you chose to run away for your own benefit? This would leave the Métis to fend for themselves with no leadership.
Your choice of words is not correct. Perhaps selfish isn't the right word. I would prefer to describe my actions as smart techniques of protection. Imagine if Wolsey's troops had captured me, or better yet, executed me on the spot. There would be no one left to return and help the Métis as a guide in the future. I have led them in the past, and I knew that they would need me again.
So you fled because you knew that the Métis would need you again, and with the possibility of death looming over you, you just didn't want to risk your life?
Exactly that. And they needed me. I was right.
How exactly did the Métis need you?
They needed someone to help with the pressuring of the Canadian government to pay more attention to the troubles of the Métis people. This is where my good friend and fellow leader, Gabriel Dumont, enters the picture. He is the one who brought me to come back to Canada, as he convinced me that the situation amongst the Métis were desperate and that they required my leadership. I believe that these actions on my part are heroic.
I think many can agree that your return to Canada was a truly brave but also uncertain step to take in the direction of winning the Canadian government's trust towards your actions. What do you have to say about this?
I know political leaders in Ottawa were nervous about my return. Although I stated that I wanted a peaceful resolution of the problems regarding the Métis, they were still monitoring me closely. But I am not the one to blame, as the Canadian government failed to act upon the pressing issues pertaining to the Métis.
How did they fail?
They failed to act. You can promise a people something, but without action, it is only words, nothing more. And you do not expect an entire people to live off of false promises when we, the Métis, requested change. Now do you?
What was it that the Canadian government promised and did not succeed in doing?
Again, they failed to create an active change. Sir William Henry Jackson and I worked on a petition, which outlined the Métis people's grievances and demands. When we sent this petition to Ottawa, the government acknowledged it, but only set a small commission to tackle the issues and look into the problems. I felt as though we needed more recognition than just a commission.
There's nothing wrong with wanting more out of what you are given. I commend you on your determination. What other influential roles did you play while fighting for Métis rights? Some call you a great and significant leader.
Thank you, but I do not think of myself as these things, for I see myself as an individual who has fought for something he believed in. I saw it as my duty to bring justice to the Métis and to have us recognized within Canada. This is why, upon fighting for people's rights during the Red River Resistance, I played an active role in creating the list of rights.
Do you mind speaking of your involvement in the creation of these rights?
It all started in 1869 when I rose to the position of a Métis leader amongst my people. I was responsible for spearheading the movement of the writing of the List of Rights. Many people regarded these as something revolutionary, but I was simply supporting my beliefs and my fight for equality amongst different opinions. Us French-speaking Métis were also a majority in the territory at the time, so it made sense what I was doing.
What were some of these rights which were included in the list?
These rights were formal conditions which were established upon the entry of Rupert's land into the Dominion of Canada. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these rights were focused in returning a sense of equality to the territory. For example, granting people with their own legislature or to have both the French and English language to be commonly used by the government.
Well, it seems that it is obvious that you are a brilliant political strategist and activist. There is no doubt that you are seen as an instrumental hero to the Métis of Manitoba and Canada as a whole. We thank you for your time today, Mr. Riel, and for all that you have done in the creation of Manitoba and the shaping of this beautiful nation.
No, and I thank you, as it has been my pleasure to be here and to be able to speak on my behalf of my involvement and my people.